problem. And then when we talk about refuge in Buddhism, it's basically saying, well, check whether you find a solution to your problem in the teachings of the Dharma, in the teachings of the Buddha, right? So no one is saying don't have chocolate, don't call your friend, don't watch a movie and so forth. You can do all that. But those are more like taking a painkiller. Maybe there's a way to find an answer to this problem in the Dharma. So even in the spur of the moment, we may just look, okay, it's impermanent, it comes and goes. It's just part of my mind, it manifests in my mind, and it goes against it. It won't be here the whole time. Just that helps. Oh, it's just temporary. It's not going to last. All right, let it go. Yeah. Or maybe there's something I can learn from that. Watching my own mind, find out what is the actual cause for that. Why do I feel miserable? Why every time something occurs, why do I feel miserable? Maybe I can, deal with it in a way that it doesn't occur again. So in that way, taking refuge is really saying, when there's a problem, we start off with when there's a problem, let's see if we find a solution in the Dharma. So to turn towards the Dharma without stopping everything else we're doing. It's not like you can't do anything else. And then you take it from there, of course, maybe I've recognized at some point my life is really limited. My mind has so much potential, there's so much my mind could do. And I'm satisfied with so little. Maybe I can see something in the Dharma that can help me to actualize this incredible potential I have, taking it to the next level. So taking it from the point of view just day-to-day life, ordinary life, or thinking, maybe I could actually overcome my problems in a more profound way, in a way in which they don't come back. And again, maybe the Dharma has a solution, it offers me a solution. So I take refuge, mainly we take refuge in those teachings, in those methods. That's all they are. They are psychological methods to work with our own mind, to make it more workable, to get some control. Right now we are under the control of our mind. We wake up in a bad mood, we wake up grumpy. We can't just wish it away. It's not going to just go away, it's there. So anyway, dealing with that and then taking it from there, of course, and then, maybe one day, this is the good thing about the Dharma. Actually, the more you do it, the less you wake up grumpy. That's one thing that actually, bad mood, it disappears at some point, right? It's really as a huge change. And that's just as an ordinary person. So even just these stages, through the right kind of methods, we can reduce and eventually overcome. But more than that, we can totally overcome all these harmful states of mind. It's possible. So many people did it. If they can do it, we can do it. There's no difference between all of us. The differences are so minor, and the mind we have, that we all have, has all the same potential. So all of us have the same potential. It sounds a little, what's the word, preposterous? The Buddha could do it, I could do it. But it's true, right? So taking refuge, therefore, means I'm turning my mind towards these methods. To not forget. Because when we're in the midst of it, what am I going to do? Maybe these methods are the last thing on our mind. So we turn towards something that's more like a sleeping pill or like a painkiller in that moment, but doesn't solve the problem. So that's taking refuge, nothing more than that. And then, of course, it's not just us. There's so many others. And of course, part of what we study is dependent arising. We've a lot. Emptiness without dependent arising is like, I don't know, bread without grains. For lack of a better word. It's like, what is it? Biryani without rice or something. It's impossible. So therefore, therefore, what was I just saying? Oh yeah, dependent arising is very much part of emptiness. We need to understand emptiness, we need to understand dependent arising. And there are many different levels. We'll discuss all these levels. It gets really difficult. But on a kind of coarser kind of level, easy to understand kind of level, well, we're all dependent on others. I mean, we don't really like that, maybe. If you come from the West, you want to be independent. Well, yeah, we can have a certain degree of independence, but without other beings, we couldn't survive. I mean, I'm not just saying humans. I'm talking about all the insects, the microorganism in our body. I mean, everything. We wouldn't survive. All the living beings in this world. Without others, we wouldn't be where we are right now. Right? The food we get, the drink, everything comes because there are other sentient beings. And our education, etc. So, therefore, their well-being is extremely important, because if they're not well, I mean, if anyone who provides our food suddenly got violently sick, and we'd be the only one not sick, what are we going to do? Everyone around us is just suddenly the cook, the staff, the people like selling milk, like everyone gets violently sick. I'm not even saying dead, right? Where are you going to get our food? Oh yeah, I have money. But what, money? No one is going to produce more money. No one's going to give you money. They're all, in hospital or whatever. So we couldn't do anything. Nothing. How terrible it would be without others. So therefore, their well-being is important for our own well-being. Without their well-being, we wouldn't survive. I mean, these microorganisms in our body, I think they're like, 30 trillion or something? Like a crazy amount of microorganisms. They're all living beings. Actually, we have more cells of microorganisms. They're usually like one-cell kind of beings. We have more of them than we have actual body cells. It's not even our body, to be honest. They belong to other beings' minds, basically. I mean, there's so many living beings, part of our body. So their well-being is so important. And of course, everything else around us. So to just look after ourselves, does that make sense? For our own survival, it's ludicrous. It doesn't make any sense. For our own survival, we have to look after others as well. And in fact, something His Holiness the Dalai Lama always says, when we were born, we were so dependent on others. We wouldn't, how long would we have been able to survive without others? Like how long does it take for a baby to die? I mean, if it doesn't drink, 2-3 days at the most. So they're not going to, walk around and get their water from somewhere. They're just lying there. So as babies, we were so dependent on others. Like, here it's literally like our survival depends on the person feeding us. And the survival of that person feeding us depends on others, who in turn depend on others, and so, it goes endlessly. And then when we grow older, again, we become very dependent on others. The older we get, I mean, how many 90-year-olds go shopping, on their own, cook their own food, do their thing? I mean, if we're lucky to live until that age, we're going to be very much dependent on others. And then in between, we're not looking after everyone else, right? We're dependent in the beginning, we're dependent in the end. I mean, much more than usual. So the time when we're strong and we can do, now it's our time to look after those who need our help. It makes perfect sense. And guess what? It makes us feel really good. That's kind of the side effect. If we do look after others unconditionally, we feel much better as well. Versus, I'm just going to do my own thing, I don't care about the rest. It may feel like, oh, I feel good right now, but not for very long. Because sooner or later, worry sets in and, a sense of isolation, loneliness, and so forth. All right, so having said all that, that's pretty straightforward. I haven't used any Buddhist words, really. I don't need to use all these weird words. not a fan of many of these words. I mean, I'm using them in a way, but just without using them. And we'll use some, of course. I want to make you know, but at first understand that all this vocabulary that is so difficult, all this terminology that's so difficult, we stumble over that. First, if you understand the meaning, and then I use the terms, then it's like, oh, I thought it was really difficult. But it isn't. None of what I study is really difficult. It's the terminology that, you know, is pretty old, and we just don't talk like that. I remember years ago, I used to teach a class at the IBD. Well, I went back to doing that, but in the very beginning when I started teaching, there was a man from Texas. He looked like a Texan farmer, you know, like he had this mustache and, you know, kind of longish hair, but still short enough to look proper. You know, and it was like really struggling with everything we were studying. And it was also technical, the terminology. When you study a text, I mean, it's like, and then one day he was like, I can't do this Texan kind of, what do you call, growl or something? I can't do that. But it kind of, the way he put it was like, we just don't talk like that in Texas. No one talks like that. People don't talk like that in Texas or anywhere else in the world. So the vocabulary is difficult. It's important, don't get me wrong, because it's so much easier once you understand what's meant. You use one word for it, and that's it, right? There's some incredible terminology, even in other religions. One of my favorites is jihad. What is a jihad? It's working with your own inner enemies. Wow. That's the original meaning, apparently. I've heard, like, after 9/11, there was a lot on the radio, and they asked Islamic scholar about the meaning of jihad, and he's like, yeah, well, working with your own enemies. And I've heard, since then, I've heard His Holiness also use it. Well, I'm fighting my own jihad. Right? Fighting with our own mental afflictions, basically. Right? I mean, there's a word for that. I love that word, jihad. People get scared when they hear the word. But it's been misinterpreted, of course. Yeah. So if I say jihad now, it takes on a different meaning altogether, and it makes perfect sense. All right. Anyway, having said all that, let's do a little meditation. The meditation I would like you to do, and I say a little bit about it now, and I won't do that every time before I do a meditation, but I would like you to visualize in the space in front of you, maybe the Buddha, if that's someone who inspires you, so the Buddha. Or it doesn't have to be like the way it's depicted, just in the form of an incredible person, very inspiring. Or if you have a teacher, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for instance, that you find inspirational, just visualize they're right there. Well, in this case, you actually have like imagery, so it's kind of like in the space in front of you. It's not that hard. You could use that and think as an actual being who inspires you. You could try that just as a mental exercise of concentration. And then I'll ask you to visualize all sentient beings are around you. Everyone is around you. I mean, they actually are, just further away, right? But we are surrounded by sentient beings, even if they're a few kilometers away from us. But just visualize, you can feel their presence all around you. They're just there. So I want you to visualize that. And then I will ask you to think of these sentient beings, that there's so much more we have in common with them. So our commonalities or our differences are outweighed by our commonalities. We have a lot more in common than there are differences between us. And usually we feel close towards someone if we have something in common with them. The punks hang out with the punks, the monks hang out with the monks, the punks, whatever, you know, like all these, the hippies hang out with the hippies. So usually, like the way we were brought up, if you remember as a teenager, you sought like-minded people. in certain groups, and those are the people you hang out with. So we have this tendency to feel close towards those we see we have similarity. I mean, we recognize being similar to us. And it can be anything. In Germany, it was the kind of music to listen to and the kind of clothes you wore. In Tibet, it's the area you come from, right? I don't know, in India, I guess maybe it's the religious communities, like maybe you seek out people from the same community, or, well, traditionally, but then modern Indians seeking out people with similar ideas and you know, whatever, education. So very similar to the West. Therefore, if we think about it, we have something so profound in common with everyone. This goes much deeper than the music we like. It goes much deeper than the religion we follow, the views we have. What could that be? Something very profound we all have in common. What could that be? Huh? Our mind. All right, just having a mind, that's fine. No. But what I meant, and that's not wrong, but what I meant is we all want to be free from trouble. We all just want to be happy and peaceful and don't want to have unpleasant experiences. We're all the same. If you look around, anyone you meet, you have no idea of their cultural background, possibly, about their upbringing, possible, especially in a place like India, where a lot of tourists come, a lot of people from other cultures come. So you don't know. They look different, they're dressed differently, like, whoa, no idea. But one thing you know for certain, one thing, they just want to be happy. They don't want to have problems. They don't want to have unpleasant experiences, and they want pleasant experiences. We know that about everyone. We don't need to know anything more about them. And that is so much more profound than the music they like, the views they have, the upbringing they have, so much deeper. So there's a connection right there. Oh, they're just like me. And just as I deserve to be happy, do they? Everyone deserves to be happy. Everyone. No one deserves to suffer. Sometimes, unfortunately, we create the causes for suffering. Sometimes we eat the wrong kind of food. But if someone unknowingly eats the wrong kind of food, do they deserve to get sick? No, of course not. No, just I didn't know, right? I thought that's going to keep them healthy and well-fed. Well, no, it had the opposite effect. Yeah. So, therefore, when we meditate, all sentient beings, just remember, they're just like me, right? They're not better, not worse, just like me. And so to think, may they be happy. They deserve to be happy. Just as I want for myself to be happy, may they too. May they find lasting happiness, not in beating someone up, not in deceiving someone, not in, doing something that really harms themselves. No, may they find a way to find real happiness that comes from within, that comes from a loving and compassionate mind. Right? And then, well, in terms of our motivation, therefore, may whatever I do today as part of this course, may whatever I do be for the benefit of these, that one day I'll be able to, through my own example, show how this lasting happiness can be found. All right? So let's try that. But we'll do a few moments of breathing meditation. Then we do a short meditation, the way I just described it. And then start with do the prayer. So now the meaning of the prayer, hopefully, is a little clearer. And of course, we take refuge in the Buddha and the Supreme Assembly, the Sangha as well. But just because the Buddha teaches the Dharma and the Sangha, those practicing together with us, they can support us in trying to apply the methods of the Dharma. All right, so let's do some breathing, and as yesterday, just start talking at some point. Now visualize in the space in front of you a being who inspires you. In the form of the Buddha, in the form of an enlightened, awakened being. Or maybe in the form of a human being, like some is the Dalai Lama. And then think that all around you, seated around you, are all sentient beings. Appearing in the form of humans. Even the animals. All living beings appear as human beings and surrounding you. As they are surrounding you, remember what we all have in common. Despite their different appearances, their different likes and dislikes, despite everything that distinguishes them from us, just like us, they're driven by a wish to be happy, to be free from any unpleasant experiences. Just like us, they deserve to be happy. They deserve to be free from problems. generate the sincere wish, may they be free from any unpleasant experience. From pain, fear, sadness, and so on. And then think, through me learning about compassion and emptiness here, may that become a cause for me one day to not only remove whatever is in the way to my own lasting peace and well-being, not only may I be able myself through this to eliminate all my limitations, that are not in the nature of my mind, that may I one day be also able to do that for others. May I reach such a state free from faults and limitations, so that I can show others how to get there themselves. So in other words, may I actualize my fullest potential. So that I'll be able to help others to achieve exactly the same. So with this in mind, with this motivation guiding us, let's recite the prayer 3 times. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, by the 2 accumulations created by practicing generosity and the other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, by the 2 accumulations created by practicing generosity and the other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, by the two accumulations created by practicing generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. All right. Now, yesterday we spoke about our dissatisfactory existence that usually we're not aware of. And when we talk about happiness, I mean, let's all face it, we want to be happy. The question is oftentimes, what does happiness really mean? Like, what is happiness for me? Is that the same for you? Well, I guess to describe happiness, happiness is the state of the absence of anything unwanted, like an unwanted experience, like an experience we find unpleasant. So when that's gone, I guess we could all agree that this is a happy, kind of peaceful state of mind. Think of the things that usually make you miserable. Well, if they were all gone, no longer any worries, no longer any doubts, no longer any fear, no longer any feeling of loneliness, whatever it is that bothers you the most, or physical pain, for instance, if there's any illness, it's all gone, right? Sometimes we have a sense happiness means to get whatever we want, right? I mean, we have a sense, oh, if I got all the money I wanted and all the, whatever comes into my mind, if I got that in the next moment. But if that was really the case, if we could every moment, would we really be happy? I mean, I'm not talking about Buddhahood. I want to be a Buddha and be like that in a moment. That's not, like, more about material things. I guess after a while it'd be so normal and it gets boring, like in terms of all the material objects. In the text, they talk about like a wish-fulfilling tree or a wish-fulfilling cow, for that matter. Not so sure about the cows, how they do it, but the wish-fulfilling trees, like, anything material manifests right there. And I guess also, besides the Buddhist kind of ideas, depending on where we come from, there's stories about, I remember I grew up with the story of a donkey. Instead of pooing poo, it would poo gold, gold coins. So I grew up with that story. It was like one of the fairy tales. Don't ask me the beginning or the end. I just remember this donkey with the money coming out of his behind. So in that way, I guess we all have stories we grew up with all this material stuff. But here, of course, we're talking about more than that. It's used as an analogy. So the Dharma, if you practice the teachings, it's like a wish-fulfilling tree. Well, let's see. Is it really? Let's see. But the point is, what is happiness? Like, what is it? It's basically, we could say, the absence of anything that is unwanted, that we don't totally feel happy and satisfied about. So any state, but being free from any of these states. Okay. So that's lasting kind of happiness. But then ordinarily we do talk about happiness on a daily basis. I mean, it would be ludicrous to say we're not happy. We are. So then we use words like happy. I feel happy right now. Don't have any problem. I'm not hungry. I'm not thirsty. I'm well. I'm comfortable. So we use these words, and at the same time we say they're in the nature of suffering. It's like, what? Why do we use these words? Why do we use words like happiness and suffering? Why do we use those? I mean, they're just words in the end. And why are they imputed? Why are things labeled as happiness and suffering? Well, it's always from a perspective, a particular perspective. It's all relative. And you've heard this before, like, of course, phenomena merely labeled, etc. So this is just another way of saying it's relative. It's in relation to something. So in relation to us, what we experience, let's say right now, if I ask you if you feel happy and you say, yes, I am, then that's in relation to our own mind. Okay, so no problem. We can all agree. Okay. And we have similar depending on who we are, but in general, not being hungry, not being thirsty, not being sick, not being ill, not having friends, etc. We would all agree that means a certain degree of happiness. But then saying phenomena in the nature of suffering, is that from the perspective of our own mind? No way. No way. No, it's real happiness. You know, we feel like this is real happiness. I mean, look at your own mind. Having a certain job, having a certain achievement. I mean, we don't need to be embarrassed about it or, you know, not truthful about it. It's absolutely the case. Like, that's what we like. We like to have friends. We like to be successful. We like to be popular, etc. Right? Whatever that means, of course, being successful, for instance. But then, from the perspective of someone else, like a liberated being, someone who has overcome all the, what I call the mental afflictions, so all the harmful emotions, from the perspective of even someone who's eliminated whatever is not in the nature of the mind, which would be like a Buddha, they would say, that's ridiculous, right? That's not happiness. That's 10 degrees. That's 0 degrees after you've gone through a winter of minus 45. In fact, I just met a Russian woman, Yemchin, that's right. She lived here, yeah. We met for tea one day, and she told me where she comes from. It goes, the temperature in the winter is about minus 25. And then there are areas in Russia, it's minus 45. Can you imagine a winter like that? Minus 45, you go outside. If you run, you die. If you jog, you die. Because you're breathing in too much cold air and your lungs start to freeze, basically. So don't run. Walk very slowly. Don't breathe too hard, right? Cover everything. So if a person who's just gone through winter of 45, minus 45 degree, there's 0, they'll be like, oh, it's summer, right? So that's us at this point, when there's a lot worse, especially when we had a really hard time being terribly sick or something. The next day, we wake up without that pain, without whatever bothered us. Oh, life is good, right? Or we were terribly hungry. Oh, we were starving, or thirsty. And that first sip of like pure, clean water, oh, it feels like bliss. Right? So that's like being satisfied with that cold temperature, when in actuality, the temperature we could experience at all times is much higher. So therefore, from the perspective of a liberated being, they're like, ugh, that kind of happiness, that's what they call happiness? Oh, poor things, right? So here we apply the word suffering, not from our perspective, but from the perspective of someone else. All right. So then you have really funny words. Suffering of suffering. Okay, suffering of suffering. They have the first suffering, it's in relation to a particular person, and you have the second suffering, which is from the perspective of another person. So what could that be? Suffering of suffering. The first suffering. From the perspective, who would call that a suffering? From whose perspective is that? Pardon? A liberated being, right? How did you know that? Because you thought of the other sufferings, right? Suffering of change and suffering, pervasive suffering, right? We use these 3 words. Suffering of change, these 3 terms. Suffering of change, and pervasive condition suffering. Oh, sounds terrible, right? If you hear that for the first time, for those of you who've heard it before, it's okay. But really what it means, the first word, it's always like a double kind of term, right? You've always had like suffering of, like double in the sense of like, with the genitive, so suffering of change. Okay, so here you don't have the genitive, pervasive suffering. All right. So the first suffering is, yes, from the perspective of a Buddha, for instance. The second suffering of suffering, that one is from the perspective of ourselves. So suffering of suffering is really saying, of course, from the point of view of a Buddha, it's actual suffering, but even we would agree it's suffering. So it's the unwanted stuff on the daily basis. What is that? not getting what we want, sickness, aging, death. They include birth, but we don't really remember that. And usually birth is seen as something really beautiful. Wow, it's so great. Even for the mother, somehow the hormones or whatever, it works in such a way that she undergoes this incredible pain. And somehow she forgets, right? There's only the mental kind of memory, but the physical memory, apparently, because otherwise no one would do it twice. I've learned that, like, in modern science, they talk about this pain. It's not like any other pain where you like, oh my God, you just touched fire and you don't get close to fire. You're so petrified of fire next time because there's still this memory, this physical memory of it. Whereas childbirth apparently is quite different. You don't have that kind of memory. You're so blissed out when the child is there, and that's usually what you remember. It's just, yeah, there was some pain, but it's not like the same memory that we would ordinarily have, because as I said, no one would do it more than once. So the point is, even birth, we see as something wonderful. We don't remember as children, right? We don't remember that pain undergoing birth itself. Anyway, for the mother, yeah, like as I just said, and everyone else is just thrilled to have a new member of the family. So, but actually birth is also very painful. We start off, we come into this birth, we create pain for ourselves and for our mothers, basically, just the mere existence. And those 9 months, I mean, I've never been pregnant, but I've eaten too much. So for many years I used to go to Israel and teach there. So now these days, well, obviously because of the situation there, I haven't been going, but they have a particular dish there. It's called hummus. Probably heard of hummus. It's really delicious. Makes up chana, chickpeas, and then like a paste, tahini, made of sesame. But if you eat too much, you have like this ball in your belly for like the whole day. So I'm thinking, wow, that must be like pregnancy. I mean, honestly, think about it. There's something growing in your belly. I mean, that it doesn't kill you is surprising, because anything other than a child growing in your belly would kill you. And just the discomfort, it's incredible. I mean, if you really want a child, you can bear it, but it's incredible. But it all starts off with that pain. Honestly, and then of course we're so happy about the childbirth, and there's a good reason for that. But let's face it, it sucks. I mean, I've watched all my siblings. Oh, I've got to pee again, or whatever. My legs are swollen. Oh, I can't sleep. I mean, it's 9 months of like a lot of discomfort. Therefore, that's said to be part of the suffering of birth. And then, of course, it's growing old. And I'm not just talking about growing old as in like becoming an old person, where nowadays they're no longer old people, they're only elderly people. No, never mind. I mean, that's just pretty much the West, where it's like so difficult, or like growing old is seen as so negative. But the point is not just that. I mean, becoming a teenager, it sucks. I didn't like to be a teenager. I don't have good memories of being a teenager. Especially because then I met the Dharma and things really changed. So everything I have from the life before being a nun was being a teenager. I just barely passed that age, and it was like, ugh, high school, mean girls, the whole thing. I mean, I was one of them, so. So the point is basically, therefore, just growing older. And I experienced something even as a child that's called growing pain. I don't know whether I had it, but I would wake up in the middle of the night and everything was achy, like my whole body was achy. And at the time they said it was growing pain, whatever that means. I was growing, so my body was achy, but I was so achy, even if I hadn't done much throughout the day. And then, becoming a teenager. Ugh. And then you're in your 20s, and what else? You have to look for like a partner now, and there's coming together, and everything is great, and then it isn't, and then there's breakup, and then you have child. There's a lot of problems. There's also a lot of happiness, but there's also a lot of problems. So these problems, let's face them, we call them problems. growing old, sickness, and in the end, not getting what we want, right? Not getting what we want. The more we want it and don't get it, the more we suffer. So that's the suffering of suffering. But then there's also what's called the suffering of change, and that is our happiness. There's a lot of that as well, right? I don't know what's more. It depends on the person. Is there more happiness? Is there more suffering? It depends. It really depends. I personally find through Buddhism, I look at it like it's a step-by-step process. I still have a long way to go. But the good thing is, on the way there, I've become much happier. I've really become more happy. I think that's a good thing, because if it was just like suffering, suffering, nothing changes, and then one day you're liberated and finally there's some well-being, oh, that would really suck. No, it's kind of like a stairways to happiness, not to heaven, but stairways to heaven. Isn't that a song?
Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Gosh, I forgot the names of these songs. But anyway, it's kind of like, it feels like a stairway. You get happier and happier and happier and happier. That's really a good thing. But it's still a suffering of change. It's still a suffering of change. So here, change. Suffering. Well, first of all, suffering is from the perspective, again, of a liberated or enlightened being. Change, I guess we could all agree. Change. So why is it called change? Even from our perspective, we could say it changes. Well, for several reasons. Why do you think? Our ordinary happiness, why is it called a suffering of change? The change, where does the change come in? What do you think? Because the happiness goes away. Because the happiness goes away. Exactly. So that's one reason. But that's just one reason. What are others? What are other reasons possible? So the happiness goes away. Yes, that is true. But think about the objects. Usually there's an object, right? There's an object that creates that happiness. I mean, right now we don't have the type of mind. No matter what the object, you're always happy. No. Our mind always has an object, by the way. Your mind always has content. There's always something that appears to the mind. There's always, even if it's nothingness, at least it's nothingness, right? If you do a meditation, you just think of nothing, then nothingness appears to your mind. It's never without an object. Darkness or whatever. There's always an object. So something always appears to your mind. All right, so in our case, what makes us happy, there's always an object that we perceive. Either with our body consciousness, our body consciousness, or our eye consciousness, our ear consciousness, nose consciousness. I mean, sometimes smell can make us happy, right? Just the smell of delicious food that reminds us of home. It doesn't have to last for that long, right? But just that moment of, or the smell of a beautiful flower, right? There's a moment of happiness. Okay, so there's an object. Now, the happiness doesn't last. Well, because the object doesn't last. That's another way of looking at it. The objects don't last. So let's say, I don't know, something makes you really happy, the sight of a beautiful tree, and then one day the tree's cut. So it's gone. Or it changes anyway. I mean, it looks beautiful now, but in winter, I don't know, trees lose their leaves around here. Not in the same way I know from home. I mean, in the winter, I'm usually home. No leaves anywhere, only a few dry ones here. But here, there's still some leaves, at least, right? Like where I come from, all gone. They turn like red, yellow in autumn, which is quite pretty. But then, once I arrive in Germany in December, all gone. Just some dried ones on the ground. So, that happiness is no longer there because the tree, at least, I mean, I don't think this barren tree gives me any happiness, really. Okay, so the happiness doesn't last. Well, really why? Because the object goes away. But even if the object stays, our mind is not able to keep on feeling that happiness. If you stare at that tree all day long, and like I said, like all day, all night, all the time, like you're going to get so fed up with that tree. Why? Because not only the objects that appear to our mind, they're impermanent, so they're not lasting. I mean, some of them may appear, not like exist in such a way that they don't change that profoundly. I mean, of course, like when you look at a river, unless the river dries up, usually, although it does change, but it can still trigger that happiness within us. But the problem is our mind. It's not right now made is the wrong word, but our mind right now is just not able to experience lasting happiness. It gets bored sooner or later, right? Because our mind right now, there's something that is part of our mind that keeps it from experiencing lasting happiness. So talking about the nature of something and a temporary state. The nature of our mind is, for instance, to want to be happy. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. When it becomes obsessive, like at the expense of others, then it becomes exaggerated. Then we have a problem. But that just basic wish to be free from suffering, that is, everyone has that, even the Buddha. Even the Buddha wouldn't want to have problems, wouldn't have to, right? Doesn't have anyway, so no worries there. But that's just the nature of mind itself. It wants to be free from certain sensations, okay? It's just the nature of our mind. And that's why everyone deserves it. Our mind should experience happiness. It should experience happiness. It's made to experience happiness. Actually, that's the nature of it. Fire is supposed to be hot, okay? It disappears if it's not. So there are just certain things that it's just in the nature of something. Water is hot, water is wet, fire is hot, and our mind should be in a state of well-being, right? That's actually, and it's possible if what is extra in our mind, and that's a very, very important idea in Buddhism. Our mind is not lacking anything. We talk like that. We do use words like, I'm lacking. But actually, strictly speaking, it doesn't lack in anything. It doesn't lack. The reason why we can't experience the kind of love and compassion we have the potential to experience is because there's something obstructing it. Our mind has everything. So even when we say we have to develop more love and compassion, it's just another way of saying the love and compassion we have the potential to experience, we just need to develop from within. It's not coming from outside. So in other words, we have all the ingredients to be liberated and to be a Buddha. If you think, for instance, of your mind like a stream of water, like a stream of water. Yesterday, when I walked past the stream there, it was very muddy, extremely muddy. It was like, wow, like it was so brown, light brown. So was that the nature of water, that brownness? No, it's not the nature of water. The H2O, it's the nature of the river is to be, well, 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen kind of thing, right? I mean, yeah, it's like there is that pure water was actually there, but it was temporarily mixed with all that mud. This morning it looked quite different. It wasn't like 100% clean, but it was definitely not brown, not the color of brown they had this morning, which shows it's not in the nature of that water. And therefore, whatever's in the water can be taken out. Would you agree? You can take whatever dirty, polluted water you have, you can clean it. Well, our mind is just like that. Our mind is like that river. And it's like this pure water, it's like the actual nature of our mind. That's the mind of a Buddha. And temporarily, it's infested by all this extra. There's all extra. It's not part of our mind. So we don't have a problem lacking something. We have a problem having too much of something that harms us. So it doesn't mean we cannot talk about, and the texts do talk about the lack of this, the lack of that. But that's in relation to the fact that there's something obstructing the this particular quality, for instance, to arise in our mind. It's obstructed by our fundamental misconception of reality, basically. It's as simple as that. So because we have this view of reality that is not realistic, all this other stuff arises in our mind, which is not in the nature. And it's really just about getting rid of it. It's about getting rid of that. That's why once you're on a certain level, you start removing it, what's in the way. And then your actual nature can manifest. And you see these great lamas. When you see some of these lamas, it's really hard to believe. But then you meet these incredible lamas who've achieved that already to some degree, or even all the way. We don't really know. It's hard for us to tell. I mean, for us, it's hard to tell whether, for instance, the Dalai Lama is a Buddha or not. We're a bit like, think like we're like 5-year-old ones, like we're like children, right? When you were 5-year-old, you met a professor or a teacher. Could you tell the difference? They were like, well, the stuff they can do, they can drive, they can do this, they can do that. It was like, whoa. For us, we couldn't tell this was a professor, this was a Nobel Peace Prize winner or whatever. They were just all amazing. Because on the level we are right now, we cannot perceive them. And they are around us, but they're like adults, you know, like a professor walking up to you and giving you like a speech about hygiene. You're like, what? You're 5 years old, no idea. So what they do is they bow down on our level and they go, oh, good boy, good girl. Don't forget to wash your hands with soap. Right? They talk to us in a way we can understand. They come to our level. So Buddhas, these great beings, they're all around us. But if they were to just manifest the way they are, we'd be like a 5-year-old with I don't know, some physics professor giving us a speech on hygiene and why it's, no way, we don't understand anything. It'd be like totally beyond us. Like we probably don't even notice them. There's just some sound. You know, like, do you know Charlie Brown? Peanuts? Yeah. So Peanuts, what I think is really funny is when Charlie Brown is with adults, or any of them of the Peanuts, the adults are going wah, 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 wah in the back. Right? That's what it sounds to us as children. They talk about stuff we have no idea what they're talking about. Am I making sense, right? Well, they're talking about their own thing. It could be like a huge secret, but we don't know because we don't understand what it's all about. We understand a word here and there, but we have no idea. When we're like really little. So we're like Charlie Brown with these adults. Wow, 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 wow. I think it's so interesting, like the creator of Charlie Brown, I don't even know who he was. I think he's passed away now. I think his name's Charlie, maybe, but never mind. The point is that that person was ingenious. Like, this is exactly what it's like for us as children. We just don't remember really clearly. So likewise, if the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, these great beings, were to manifest the way they are, it'd be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Can't even, don't even notice. So they come to our own level. They not bow down in the sense of like respectfully, but like when you talk to children, if you tower over them, they're really intimidated. So usually you go down, when you meet a child for the first time, you make yourself smaller, so you're on eye level, right? Even let them go sit and you go look up to them so they can look down, so they don't feel intimidated. And then they talk to you the way you understand it. That's what Buddhas and Bodhisattvas do. That's why they manifest as just good old ordinary people. They can be, sometimes people describe the lamas as so ordinary, for lack of a better word. It's like when you talk to them, they're just ordinary, but not in a bad way, in a way you can relate to. Yeah. But that's only for our own sake. In actuality, their mind is totally pure of whatever was there before, whatever is in our mind right now. But we talk about something, there's a word called Buddha nature. That's such a weird word. One of my teachers once said, it's like when you look on the menu and it says palak paneer, my favorite. I'm a total fan of palak paneer. I don't know much Indian food because every time I go to an Indian restaurant, I order palak paneer. So when I get home, people are like, you don't know what this is? And I'm like, no, I only know what palak paneer is because I love it so much. Anyway, so palak paneer. In a good restaurant, palak paneer is not there already. I mean, if it has been cooking on a pot, it's probably not really good paneer. I mean, the color, it's just you can tell from the color. It's not as bright green. So usually they freshly prepare it. Maybe they've cooked the spinach, but they haven't ground it yet, and they haven't cooked it yet with the, I know how to make it. I made it as well in Germany. So anyway, the point is, are they lying when they say we have palak paneer on the menu? Because they don't have palak paneer yet. Are they lying? It's lying. They don't have palak paneer. They don't have it yet. Otherwise, you wouldn't go to the restaurant. If you had already palak paneer, you wouldn't eat there. No, but what it means is we have all the ingredients. We have everything to make it. We have everything here to make it. That's the same as Buddha nature. So on the menu of our own existence, as part of our identity, we have Buddha nature. We have all the ingredients to be a Buddha. We have everything already here. In some traditions, they go as far as saying, you're already a Buddha. Which is not to be taken literally in that, like, I'm the same as a Buddha. No, no, it's really just saying the same thing. We have everything we need, but we have to remove what's extra. We have to remove what's not in the nature of our own mind. It's all about that. It's about removal. So really, Buddha nature means removal. And the word Buddha, I can't even say it. I think if I said it properly, it would be like Buddha. That it's difficult for us. Buddha. Buddha. So Buddha. So this Buddha, this awakening. Once someone explained this to me, well, I'm not sure it's true because some don't agree, but it's interesting because the word but apparently, the word flower bud, has the same, some would say it's the same origin, it comes from the Sanskrit, but where like when you have a flower bud, it's kind of covered by something. The flower's already inside. It's not like you need to add anything. So in order for the flower to blossom, all you need to do is remove what's outside, like, right? So a flower bud is like that which has everything inside. All that needs to happen is for the outside skin to fall away, and then it can unfold. I really like that. In fact, of course, there are a lot of words that have their origin in Sanskrit. A lot of words. One I just learned is nightmare. Nightmare has its origin in the Sanskrit. Do you know how? Night mara. Mara. You know the word mara, which, as far as I understand, is like an evil force, like a demon kind of thing. So in Buddhism, we use that word mara, but we talk mainly about inner maras, inner kind of obstructive or inner harmful things. So the nightmare apparently has its origin in like the belief at night a mara comes and sits on your chest, so you can't breathe or something. And I know that people have these dreams. I've had a dream once like that. I felt like something was on my chest and I couldn't move, and my eyes are open, I couldn't do anything, I couldn't scream, and then fortunately it went away. So they talk about this as a night mara. Anyway, in Sanskrit there are a lot of words that, well, apparently it wasn't Sanskrit, there was another language that is the foundation or the root for Sanskrit and for many European languages, which is why there's so many words. It's beautiful. We're so culturally connected in Europe to India. We always feel it's like the Greeks, but the Greeks they had all their stuff from India. So really, India is like sometimes called, what is it called? The cradle of civilization. It really was, without us knowing. Even in Tibetan, you know, like the you know the days of the week? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Monday is the day of moon, in Tibetan as well. Tuesday, what is it in Hindi? Which planet? Mercury? Mars, that's right. Same in Tibetan, it's the day of Mars. Same in French, mercredi. Mercredi, I think. And then what is it? Wednesday. No, it's not Jupiter. Wednesday is Jupiter? Vendredi. I know in Tibetan it's Halakba, but Halakba I forget what it is. Is it, what is it? Mercury. Is it Mercury? Mercury, right? Yeah, that's the same in Tibetan then. So in Tibetan, in French, in Hindi possibly. So where does it come from? The Tibetans got it from the Indians, not from the Greeks. We say we got it from the Greeks, but the Greeks got it from India. So like every day, the day of moon, the day of Saturn, that's Saturday, Sunday, of course, the sun. So you have the 7 planets. It's quite beautiful. I really like that, how our culture actually goes back all the way to the culture of India, at least in the West. I don't know about other continents, about other countries. In the West, I mean Europe, at least where I come from. So it all goes back to India. But the point is, so Sanskrit, therefore, like awakening, it has that connotation of you have everything there, you just need to awaken to it. Or like a flower, it needs to unfold when what is in the way, like a bud, like whatever is in the way for it to unfold. That, I think, is a really important idea. We're not lacking anything. We've got too much of something. Yeah, understanding that. It's important for self-confidence, for our self-confidence. I've got everything. I can do it. I've got all the ingredients here. I've got that palapanya inside me. I've got that Buddha nature inside me. So there's that. But right now, we can't experience that. We can't experience this incredible happiness, that incredible bliss and well-being that is totally independent of anything. We can have glimpses of it. That's the good thing, glimpses. If we didn't have glimpses, it'd be really hard to believe it was possible. So sometimes in the presence of a Lama, I'm thinking of them, you know, like in the West. I don't know in India, I haven't seen, in India they do that as well, actually, maybe not in the same way. But we have these huge supermarkets, crazy supermarkets. You can't decide. They're like 12 types of butter. Like, which butter are you going to choose? It takes forever to go shopping. So they have these little counters, and then if they have like a cheese that they sell, like a new cheese that they hadn't offered before, they're little pieces of cheese on like little wooden sticks, like toothpicks usually, and you can try. Now, going with my mom shopping is the most embarrassing thing in the world because she never buys it, but she always tries it. And she tries again and again when she likes it, you know, she takes a round and she comes back. And they're not stupid, they know it's my mom again. So it's like my mom heading towards the cheese thing there, and they're usually different types. And she's like, and she's totally lying. She's to me like, oh, we could buy some cheese, let's buy this one, let me try this one. Oh, I'm not sure, let me try again. And she never buys it. So now it's like mom is heading that way. I'm like, Mom, I'm not going to go to the cheese. It's too embarrassing. Anyway, that's not important. That's not the important part of the story. But the point is, you get to taste that cheese, but you still have to buy it. It's a bit like that. When we meet the lamas, sometimes they can give us a glimpse. Sometimes in the presence of someone like His Holiness, people had these experiences, like His Holiness or other lamas, this incredible sense of well-being. This deep sense of like, usually people are so overwhelmed they start crying. That's a very human reaction. If there's a very strong emotion that you haven't felt before or that's overwhelming you, you tear up. They're not tears of sadness. They're actually tears of being overwhelmed by that. So the lamas have that ability to give you a taste of it. The problem is, it won't last. You still have to buy the cheese. In other words, you still have to do all the practices to get there. But now you know what it tastes like. You get a sense of what is possible. Around a Lama, where like nothing else matters. There's just them, and you're so deeply inspired. And it's not difficult to have love for others, in that moment. A moment later, everyone annoys you around you, and it all goes back to the good old self. But the point is, the lamas, these great beings, basically, and I'm not saying everyone who has the name lama is one of those qualified beings, but we're really fortunate to have them around, because what they do is they give us a taste of what's possible. And that inspires us to go on. That's why it's good to receive their teachings, to just get a sense and see how you feel around them. And they can manifest in so many different ways. They don't have to manifest just Buddhist. They can manifest, in the end, it's just a word, right? What does that even mean? So therefore, my point is, we have this incredible potential, but right now it can't come to the surface. It can't, because there's a particular mind that is the root, and that obstructs our mind. This fundamental misconception of reality, right? Seeing things in a way in which they just never could exist. In fact, if they existed that way, nothing would be possible. So, which is why we talk about our happiness, the kind of happiness we experience right now, as a type of suffering, because it's got that overlay. It's got that other mind. It's almost like trying to eat that cheese with like some extra skin in your mouth, and you really can't taste it. So whatever we do, we actually have this underlying mind, and even if it was the most disgusting food in the world, we wouldn't experience it as such. Our mind couldn't do that. Right now it can, because it's got that overlay. Such an overlay that if we keep with the same object for too long, that incredible suffering comes through. So as I said yesterday, right now we have to be on our toes. We have to constantly change around for suffering not to arise. Our mind right now experiences this, what we call suffering, something our mind doesn't want. In the end, why do we label it suffering? Why do we call it suffering? Just because it's something our mind doesn't want. It doesn't want to experience it. That's why. That's why it's called that. It's actually, in its nature, such that if nothing of what we experience right now that is extra, if nothing of that was there, it would be so blissful, it wouldn't depend on anything outside of ourselves. But right now, since from within it doesn't happen, from within our mind is such that it experiences problems, we need to depend very much on the outside, right? We're very dependent on the outside in that we need to eat, we need to meet people, we need to do things all the time, because otherwise our experience will change into suffering. It sounds terrible, but that's just the way it is. You can try it out. Sit in the same position without moving for an hour. Oh my God, the pain gets worse. Even in my case, I've been sitting for a few years now, but still, if I do it for too long and I don't move in a certain way, even if they're just micro movements, I'll suffer greatly. Yeah. If I don't have other thoughts, if I just think of the same thing again and again. All right, if it's single-pointed concentration, at a certain point, okay, things change, single-pointed concentration. But until then, and even then, I cannot stay in that concentrated state forever. That's only when all the obscurations are gone. Does that make sense? So that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about having this incredible mind with a potential we have no idea of. We already have some sense of what we can do, what we're able. Maybe we have a certain confidence. The fact that we're all here and, not working an 8-hour shift or something. There's definitely a sense, okay, we have been looking for more. But there's so many more possibilities. And right now, we're just obstructed. Which is why our happiness, what we call ordinarily as a happiness, well, first of all, from the intensity of that, an arhat would be laughing. Ugh, ridiculous, you call that happiness? Ugh, I call that a cold temperature. Yeah, again, going back to the analogy of the temperature. Or using salt, right? Like salt. Saltless food is the experience of an arhat or a Buddha, right? But right now, we put so much salt in our food that little bit salt seems to be the absence of salt, right? The absence of salt. So we believe that to be the absence of suffering. But actually, there's still a lot of salt in our food. So only a person who has no salt altogether, they know that even the food with little salt is still salty. So let's say salt was like suffering, for lack of a better analogy. I mean, I still have the analogy of the temperature, but okay. But let's take the salt analogy. Yes, so no salt is really, like the absence of any type of salt. That's the experience of an arhat or a Buddha. And because we're so used to a lot of salt, then a little less feels like no salt altogether. Yeah, so that would be like happiness. That would be like the happiness we experience. So therefore, in terms of its intensity, it is actually in the nature of suffering, in terms of the intensity compared to what's possible. That's why it's called a suffering. Secondly, it's changed because, as you said, it doesn't remain. So the object doesn't remain. Even if the object remains the same, we get bored of it. Our mind won't be able to enjoy it for a long period of time. So just because our mind just can't do that, which is why we need to change all the time. We have to be constantly moving. I mean, how much time and energy do we spend on just getting food? I mean, we have a body right now that constantly needs to be fed, and a mind that needs to be entertained. And that's the third type of suffering, having this body and this mind. It's because we have this body and this mind, mainly this mind that is obstructed. So sooner or later it gets bored. Sooner or later it needs something else. It needs to be entertained. Sooner or later some problem will arise, right? Especially since we create the causes for new problems, based also on that fundamental misconception. We create again and again problems for ourselves, so we have these experiences in the form of suffering. So just having this body and this mind, it sucks. This body. I mean, we're so attached to our body, but honestly, if it was in the nature of happiness, just try not to have a shower for a few days. Don't bath for a week. Right now, we don't even know that our body is such, it's in the nature of being smelly. And you know, gross, basically. I mean, what it produces. I mean, we consider, I mean, in and of itself, it's not gross or pleasant or unpleasant, whatever. But what we consider to be pleasant, it's the smell of roses and flowers, but our body doesn't naturally have that smell unless you clean it often enough with certain cleaning products, and then we believe it's so nice and beautiful. And when we attach to another person's body, we feel the same way. Well, have that person not shower for a month and see how you feel about that. Its nature is such that if you don't look after it, you're going to get smelly and sick and you die, right? That's just the nature of our body. We shouldn't have such a body. We should have a body, you feed it, you bath it, you exercise or you don't, doesn't matter, right? Wouldn't we all want such a body? We think it's totally normal to have this body, but a Buddha's body is not like that, an Arhat's body is not like that. They have a body, they clean it, they don't clean it, it's going to be pure and you know, it's going to smell good. They don't need to eat, they don't need to sleep. They don't need, oh my God, like how many hours do we have to spend sleeping? Right? Isn't that ridiculous? 8 hours, 7 hours, even if it's 6 hours every day doing nothing. doing nothing, just lying there. Actually, we never question that. Oh, it's good for you. Yeah, but if you didn't have to sleep, right? The stuff you could do in the meantime. And what's very interesting, there are many lamas who don't need to sleep. Hard to believe, right? But I witnessed this with my own eyes. And honestly, you cannot fake this. You really cannot fake this. When you're really, really tired, you can't pretend you're awake. There's no way. But many of you have probably heard of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Lama Zopa Rinpoche? Have you ever heard of him? Lama Zopa Rinpoche? Yeah? Who hasn't heard of Lama Zopa Rinpoche? Oh, okay. So unfortunately, he passed away in 23. He was an incredible Lama, amazing Lama, who was like, he was so beyond everything. He came a lot to this area, was actually from Nepal, of Tibetan ethnicity, but still born in Nepal. Was a very high Lama in his previous life, was recognized as a high Lama, had studied in Tibet and then left Tibet after the Chinese occupation, and came to India, and he was one of the first Lamas of the Tibetan society, Tibetan exile community, who actually had Western students, the hippies, when they came here on the hippie trail. And him and his teacher, Lama Yeshe didn't live that long. He passed away in 84, I think. But Lama Zopa Rinpoche only passed away last year, and he was such an incredible Lama. Unbelievable. No attachment to worldly things. He got presents all the time, every time people would go and see him. And people said it was really interesting when you were like waiting outside, if you had to wait to see Rinpoche. So someone would walk in with a gift, give it to Rinpoche. Then the person came out, the next person came in and walked out with that gift. So he never kept anything for himself. He gave everything away. His mind was so, he just lived the Dharma. When he taught the Dharma. And he didn't sleep. Now, I heard the rumor that he didn't sleep. His attendant, his attendant had to always catch up on sleep because Rinpoche didn't sleep. Sometimes he felt like he was nodding off. So he would be like having his eyes closed, maybe move forward, and then suddenly say something. It wasn't like a person who had just been asleep. So I remember when he was in Tushita one time, he visited there, and there was a puja that went on really late, until like 11 at night. Remember, she had given a lot of teachings during that puja, and beautiful meditations he guided. And then when the puja was over, he said, he said to one friend of mine, "Oh, you asked me for a teaching. I can give you the teaching now." And she turned around, she just happened to be close to me, and she said, "Do you want to come?" And I'm like, "Sure, let's go." And so we went to his room. Remember, she started around 11:30 at night with the teaching, and he went until 5. And we were like, and then Rinpoche is like, "Okay, now I need to do my practice now. Well, go home, have some coffee, freshen up, and I'll continue with the teaching afterwards." So we're like, okay. So we raced back home, had some coffee. I didn't lie down. Oh my God, I would never wake up again. So raced back up. At 6, Rinpoche was doing his practice. You could hear him. He was fresh as a fiddle, fit as a fiddle, like it was. And we were like, all right, got the teachings. And they went on until 7 or 8. And Rinpoche was just like he had rested the whole night. And you really can't pretend it. And we were like, okay, Rinpoche. So Rinpoche was about to leave Tushita. So as it's customary, you see the Lama off. So we were waiting, but Rinpoche had to see a lot of people. So he raced back and forth, went to see this meditator and that meditator living in the vicinity. One who was really ill, so he wanted to meet him before that. And he just raced past us. And we were just sitting there outside. You remember, like, my friend and I, we were like, so like, oh my God, when will Rinpoche leave? I hope it'll be soon. I have to go to sleep. Oh, it was so exhausting. And really you can't pretend. And Rinpoche wasn't on any kind of drugs or something. No way. And he does that all the time. Right? So it takes a few moments. So why do we have to sleep? Basically because our mind gets so exhausted with all the misconceptions and the mental afflictions. If they're no longer there, there's nothing that exhausts our mind. It's not about the body, because you can be lying in bed the whole day or all night. If you don't sleep, you'll be exhausted. So it's definitely a mental state. So we sleep because we need, subtler levels of our mind need to manifest. Because our mind is so coarse right now because of all the afflictions. Our mind is very coarse. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting to have that kind of mind. It's exhausting to have the resentment, the dislike. I mean, I'm not even talking about full-born, I don't know, anger where you want to kill someone. We don't experience that, not very often, at least, fortunately. But there's resentment, and it's like, I don't like this, I don't like that, and this is being grumpy, and there's a person that annoys us, feeling annoyed with someone. That's a form of anger or aversion. It's exhausting. And I think we can all know that if we've been really angry, like a whole day, how tiring is that? It's really tiring. It eats us from within if you have real anger. So like subtle aversions are still exhausting. Attachment is exhausting. Envy is exhausting. Arrogance is exhausting. They're all really exhausting. That's why we have to sleep. Because the mind is so coarse. It needs to go into a level that's subtler. And that's what happens during sleep. It becomes very subtle. So subtle that we don't remember even what happened during our sleep. We may remember some of our dreams, but oftentimes we dream every night and we still don't remember every dream we had because our mind became so subtle. So some of these great practitioners, they don't need to sleep because their mind is subtler in the first place. It all makes sense. So therefore, right now we have a body that requires food at certain intervals, right? Again and again, a certain quality of food. It needs to be exercised. It needs to be groomed. Boy, that's so much work. So much work, so much time and energy. And we enjoy it because we don't know better. But if we didn't have to eat, if we just didn't feel hungry, right now it feels like, oh, that's terrible. I love eating. Yeah, because we're hungry. If we weren't hungry, if we were full the whole time, we wouldn't enjoy eating. I mean, try to eat your favorite food when you're totally full. It's torture, right? So we have this body that's so demanding, and we have a mind that's so demanding. This is happiness? I don't know. If you know the alternative, having a body that doesn't ache at all. Talking about body aching, I think we need to take a break. I start getting achy. You guys are good. You don't look achy at all. All right. Is this time for a break?
Yeah, we can take a 15-20 minute tea break.
Yeah, let's take a tea break. That's a good idea. I don't want to torture you too much. At some point, I get to like speed pee, 5 minutes. Can you be back? But no, we're not there yet. All right. Okay, so let's take a break. 20 minutes. That sounds good. Yeah.